Thank you very much for this kind invitation and this opportunity to present my work. But I have been working on it for last 2-3 years of my work to present and get feedback from this great department. Thank you. Today, I'm going to present the journey that starts, the migration journey that starts from Afghanistan and specifically passes through locations like Iran, Turkey, and the type of migration that ends to mainly Europe. This journey is described by journey of death by people who I listen to their stories. This is marked by several attempts and reattempts, by violence, by pushbacks, by injuries and loss of lives. And it is dispersed across multiple geographies and over fragmented and long time, which my informants described spending their years over this journey. So what I hope for this talk today is to walk you through 3 steps of this journey and to explore with you the experience of migrants themselves, their imaginations, their aspirations toward this journey, and how they really experience each step of it. I will present my PhD work as a kind of background, but I will have a focus on the readier part to publish of this work. So for the next 40 minutes, I will follow this outline. I will first go over introducing research questions and how this really started the field work and the first research questions. Then I will briefly talk about the studies that I'm building my work on, and I will devote a good amount of time on methodology because I assume this might be more interesting for you. Then I will go over the conceptual core of the research that raised from migrants' own languages, and then discuss each step of fieldwork. As I said, the post journey is the part that I want to have more focus on, but to kind of complete the puzzle, I will also discuss the pre-journey and in between side of the fieldwork as well. So how this whole work started goes back to summer of 2023 when I traveled to Germany. It wasn't a research trip. I didn't carry any interview guide. I just went to Heidelberg to visit a friend, but this turned to kind of a pre-field work for me because I met a refugee activist and she introduced me to a newcomer Afghan community. And I ended up listening to their life stories, their journeys, over a tea, over a talk all summer holiday. But one story really stayed with me, and from his story, I decided to begin this research and begin the field work. It was Ahmad's story. Ahmad took a journey from Turkey to Greece, a sea journey, and he lost his wife and his 2 children on the way. But despite this, he still continued his journey to reach Germany. But this kind of tragedy is not something new. I really get used to hear about it. But the way he actually narrated his decisions, his ideas was something that made me think about this research. He said, once in your life you start to dream about Europe, and then you can never stop thinking of it, and you have to play the game. This was the first time I was hearing the word game. And he said that he born in Iran, actually. He actually raised there, and then he moved to Turkey. He managed to build a decent life in Istanbul for his and his family, find a good job in construction, and rent a good house. But despite being safe, although there were problems, but despite being away from war and violence, he decided to take the risk of this journey. So I started thinking that why an idea of a place, an imagination of a place becomes so powerful in one's mind that leads them to encounter with this huge danger. With this in my mind, I started my fieldwork, trying to understand this journey from its very beginning, from its very roots, until the end that my informants are assuming, not that I'm assuming an end for journey. So I designed fieldwork in 3 locations: Iran as a kind of pre-journey site, and then Turkey as a kind of transit in between phase. Not that it's simply a in-between site, but also in my observation, I saw that it is understood as a first very important milestone to reach also by my informants. And finally, Germany, not as a random European country, but because of 2 reasons. First was statistical. Germany is the first country of submitting asylum cases for Afghan migrants for over years. And also in my observations, I see that Germany is kind of a very dreamy location, very imagined future for for Afghan migrants. All of the other locations, all the other countries are only there to reach Germany. And as I continued interviews and doing the field work, I saw that this journey is having another dimension, and that's the online dimension. Not only this journey is expanded over geographies, but it is expanding over screens also. So I added a digital ethnography dimension. I choose the most used application for migrants, and that's the application Telegram. It's similar to WhatsApp. It is designed for one-to-one messaging, but it allows building large communities. I will come back to this issue. About the research questions, at the core of my study, I'm asking that how Afghans are building and reworking on migration project under the term game and across different geographies, and what is the role of digital spaces in this process. In each country, then I'm asking different research questions in relation to pre-journey in Iran and Afghanistan. I'm concerning about the imaginations, how they are first shaping and aspirations toward migration, and more importantly, whether these aspirations and imaginations are leading to mobility in a specific time frame. In Turkey, the between phase of journey, I'm trying to understand the redecision making of migrants after having experiencing a specific part of the journey. And then in Germany, in the end point, I'm trying to ask about the re-evaluation of journey by its interlocutors, and try to understand how the shift in this evaluation is happening after experiencing the journey. As you can imagine, I'm building over 3 main bodies of literature. The first is the studies of migration journey, the ethnographic accounts that are challenging the linearity between migration from point A to point B, for example. The studies that are challenging the categories of migration, categories of countries of transit or destination, for example. And the second body is studies of migration aspirations and social imaginaries. I'm trying to bring this idea of social imaginaries, link it with studies of migration journey, and try to understand the role of these decision-making, these imaginaries in every part of journey, not in relation to just destination country. And finally, I'm hoping to contribute to digital migration studies by showing that social media and digital platforms are acting as an infrastructure of migration, because this body of work is mainly considering them as a tool of migration. So about the methodology, I don't want to repeat myself in selection of sites, but I will briefly go over details of interviews. I conducted 10 interviews in each location, total of 30 interviews. In Germany, I used a life story method, which was very helpful in understanding their whole experience in their own narratives. In Iran and in Turkey, I used semi-structured methods, but I use the purposive sampling method because I was only concerned with people who were about to migrate or who were thinking about migration, not just random migrants living in the city. And I really wanted to make a follow-up interviews for all the locations, but the time frame of PhD really didn't allow me to do. But I managed to make follow-up interviews in Iran after a year to see whether they started their migration project actually after a year or not. In relation to digital ethnography, I conducted 18 months of what is called internet ethnography or internet ethnography. I chose only 10 groups and channels out of the available groups and channels based on some criteria. For example, I chose like the groups that had more than 100 followers, or the groups that everybody could send messages in them. And I started monitoring them for like 2-3 hours every night for the 18 months. Telegram also acted as a dual function for me because it was also a field work for me, but I also identified potential interviews from these platforms, as I said, due to the purposive sampling. I texted them and I arranged interviews. Some of them I conducted online and some of them in real world. So why I chose Telegram is a question that comes to me when I present my work. Is first because I really heard about this from my informants before starting the field, as the application that we use a lot for coordination, for getting ideas about the route and or finding facilitators and everything. And second, it was because of the Telegram's own characteristics that allowed me to have a large chat history from the time that that group and or channel is built. So I ended up with a large data set that I was able to work with. This is how my field work in digital space looked like. I didn't translate the name of groups because I didn't want them to be traceable. So a few notes about methodology and a few notes about ethics. First is that I'm using more than digital approach in this relation because this approach is helping me not to divide the line between online and offline world and to treat them as an intangible to words, really. And second is a platform-sensitive ethnographic approach that helps me to treat Telegram not just as a simple container of communication, but as a place that the communication is built because of their own characteristics, and a place that is shaping and reshaping migrants' experiences and decisions. About the ethics, when it comes to digital places, we can discuss it for hours, but simply what I did was that I treated this digital area, I treated ethics in this digital area as an ongoing process. I tried to go back to those considerations in relation to every type of data. I try to bring in the idea of informed consent in all of the conversations that I'm using, all of the data that I'm using, for example. And about the limitations of this methodology, of course, I'm not trying to give a generalized idea about all Afghan populations. It's just bring a brief ethnographic account of a specific population, a specific route, and what is happening in that route. So about the game, briefly, the word game is a word that my informants are using instead of word migration, and it refers to irregular passage of borders, irregular clandestine ways of journeying. Interestingly, they are not using the Persian translation of this word. They're referring as it is, as the game. For example, for a starting of game, they say hitting the game, or for a failed game, they say burned game. And I believe that this shared corridor language has a lot to say as a kind of emic conceptual term. This is deeply historical. I believe that this reflects the history of displacement in this nation, and it refers to lack of actually legal ways for migration. In this screenshot from Telegram, for example, someone is asking whether if someone knows a legal way to Turkey, and the answer is that there is no such a thing as a legal way for Afghans. So I think this wording also reflects to these kind of incidents in relation to this corridor. Also, I believe that I read game as a way that it's deeply cultural. It brings in how game is masculine also. It brings in the gender dimension, and how endurance, how starting a journey is related to manhood in this culture. Game has another dimension. It is treated as a commodity in the dimension of, let's say, facilitators, smugglers, or I would use service providers. I see this kind of message in all the platforms. They're similar to a restaurant menu. Each type of game is mentioned, each type of service is mentioned, and there's a price in front of them. Prices are always in euros. For example, the game to Italy is here 8,000 euros, or Bosnia is 500 euros. Here there are type of services, taxi game, or 24-hour support in the way, for example. But interestingly, migrants are not active users of these services. They're negotiating all the time. They're warning each other over specific smuggler, over specific prices. And other dimension is that game is class-based. For example, the sea journey that we kind of understand it as a riskiest journey. I heard it multiple times from my informants that sea journey is for rich kids. So this is the visualization of the type of routes that my informants took from Afghanistan to Germany. And this shows the variety of these services. So before going to the different locations that I conducted fieldwork, this is made by Notebook LM. It is how AI, I guess, understand my research. I thought it would be a good overview before presenting the pre-journey, the in-between, and the end re-evaluation. As I said, I will start with the end point from Germany. I don't want to drown you with the experience of migrants who undertook the journey from Germany, but I want to discuss the core puzzle of this chapter. In Germany interviews, I asked my informants to go back to the moment that they decided to start their journey, to the moment in Turkey, and try to see whether they would make this decision again or not. The moment that they passed money to a smuggler, the moment that they started packing. And then I asked them to if they would recommend taking this journey to their loved ones back in Afghanistan, or more importantly, their siblings. And the answer to all of these questions was very strong no. We wouldn't take the journey again if we knew what was expecting for in the way. And their answer, this no, was separating Germany from the journey. They said that they knew that what is happening, what is going to wait them in Germany. They knew about weather, housing, the bureaucratic issues, but what they didn't prepare for, what they didn't thought that is going to happen, is what happened to them on the way. They encountered with a level of violence that they never thought. They had to endure a lot physically, endure a lot psychologically also. So I started questioning that why this gap in pre-journey imagination is happening. My informants have a very good access to internet. They have a very good access to social networks who really took this journey, and they're getting information all the time from different places. So why this gap is happening? Also, we see that governments are conducting information campaigns these days a lot to inform migrants about their risks. So what is the root causes of this gap? I tried to actually understand this by going deep in the conversations, and most of the time it was first time that my informants also realized this difference in their ideas, and it was a moment of self-realizations for them. So it was a great experience to try to understand this together. They came up with lots of explanations, and based on them, I grouped on 7 different themes that why this misimagination is happening in relation to journey. First, they referred to age as the first factor. They said we were too young to decide, and we were too brave because we were too young. Secondly, they referred to the type of digital narratives, digital content that they're seeing every day in social media. I will come about this in relation to this later also. But this factor I also saw it a lot in my digital observations too. I never see a failure story about migration in whole 18 months that I was monitoring these groups, but success stories, successfully passing the borders, having a good life in Europe, or passing in a very easy way kind of stories are everywhere, and my informants referred to this factor a lot in our conversations. The third one was how smugglers actually mentioned about the journey before to my informants, how they described journey. For example, they described that about 2 days of walking, but they ended up like weeks of walking, for instance. But one informant mentioned a very interesting thing, and that was that when a migrant goes to a smuggler, he or she doesn't need to be convinced about the journey. They are already convinced before going to the smuggler. So they said it wasn't effective, but still it built a mindset that journey would be an easy experience. Other factor goes to the stories of the close network. Whenever a close friend or a close relative makes a successful journey, it really affects the ones who are thinking about the journey, and it really acts as a turning point for these people. That if he could have do it, if he made it, then I can make it easily. And then suddenly they said that leaving behind felt like staying in my place and not being successful. The one before last one goes how culturally this journey is understood by the community, and how it is related to masculinity. The journey is expected to undertake by young men first, and to test by young men, or young children should go and send back money to their families, for example. The last one is not a factor, but is a situation that actually leads to this decision making, and that's the situation of waithood in Turkey or other transit countries. They say that waiting in these countries seems like dying every day. So taking the journey once and encountering with death once seems easier than actually waiting here and doing nothing and wasting their life. This situation, they say, is too much loss of dignity that we decide at the end of the day to take the risks, whatever it would be. So here I have some videos of the content around the success stories that are sharing in social media. For example, in this video, they're saying that they made to cross the waters. So they're reducing the volume a bit because it's in Persian. They're saying that they passed the Turkish water to Greece. And they're also naming their the service they use, their facilitators. I truly never understood the motivation actually behind this content. That why really people are sharing. They already made their journeys and they're safe in the place they wanted to go. But I assume it's because the smuggler is asking them to record. The second one is a kind of jungle journey, jungle game, and interesting thing is that the kind of caption and the language behind these posts are extremely motivational, and you can see extremely motivational. And if someone is staying, means that they're failing. If someone is staying, it means that they're not trying enough or they're using wrong strategies. It's a blaming language actually behind the post, and those who made the game are the successful ones and the motivated ones actually. This is a type of game, the self game. This is where group of people, 2 or more usually, they take the journey by themselves, but they receive a fully online kind of assistance. It's very interesting for me. They're sending them money, and if they reach a specific point, they're releasing more money. And all the way, someone is sending the support or the points, the locations for them to follow. And this is, they said, self game. And it is very popular these days. So briefly, what I think I did in this chapter and how I think this might be contribute to the overall understanding of migration journey is that migrants are taking the risk. This is the argument that I like to make, not because they're not aware of the risks, not because they're naive or they don't understand the risk, but because the risks and the dangers of journey is reframed and is repacked for them in a way that it seems manageable with the right strategies to make, and all the danger seems avoidable for them actually. It's my first argument. Excuse me. Secondly, I'm trying to reflect the role of social media here on the decision making and how it is affecting the decisions toward migration at first place. So now I want to go to other side of journey, to Iran, to the pre-journey and beginning side of the journey. I managed to conduct also online interviews in Afghanistan, so to add also a good understanding of pre-journey situation also in that country. In Iran and Afghanistan stage, I try to understand the situation actually before physical movement. So I value the pre-movement. I think it is kind of an understudied topic in migration journeys, that we always assume that migration starts with physical movement. So I try to go deep in and understand how the imaginations toward migration, how the initial aspirations are sharing. Because whenever I ask my informants, almost all of them, to take me back to the beginning of their journeys, they rarely start their narratives with physical movement. They, for example, start with a family memory or childhood memory that happened in their early lives that made them to first start thinking about migration. And that's where I believe this kind of memories or imaginations are shaping toward migration. But interestingly, what I see in this location was that I name it aspiration as a prolonged situation, is that people start to think about migration, people start to aspire and imagine another place in their lives. But they live with this imagination, this aspiration for a long years, maybe for the rest of their lives, we don't know. They describe a situation that they wake up every day, they check, for example, digital content on migration, they save money, they prepare their bodies and minds, but they, not all of them truly actually start their migration project. So first, I try to capture these moments before migration, these living with aspiration, these livings with imaginations. And then I try to really understand that why some people are acting, maybe all of them are aspiring, but some stay in their place and some act at the end of the day. So I made follow-up interviews, and out of the 10 people that I first interviewed, only 4 of them moved to, started their journey to Turkey, actually. The ones that didn't start, they had different explanations, like family obligations or economic issues, or simply not being able to decide on which smuggler they have to use, or just they were waiting for the best opportunity to happen. But the ones who actually took the journey, who started the journey, had something in common that was very interesting for me, and I named it a threshold moment. They describe a situation, an incident that happened to them exactly before taking the decision, that they all thought that, okay, it's enough and I can't bear it more. That incident wasn't something unique. They actually experienced it before. For example, a police arrest. Afghans in Iran always experience this, but that one last thing really influenced them in a way that they said, okay, we can't bear it anymore. Or for example, another informant described that he couldn't get his wage from his employee, and this used to happen to him a lot. But that exact moment, he said, I can't bear it more, and I will take the journey, whatever it is. So with this idea, I know it might seem a bit brief overview, but the chapter has more of it. With this in my mind, I think I will be able to first argue that non-movement is not failure, non-movement is not the beginning of migration project, and non-movement shouldn't understood as an empty time that is spent before migration. And secondly, I would like to mention that actually with this idea of threshold moment, that maybe migration decision and the decision to move is not necessarily a rational one-time decision making, but it might be the accumulation of pressure, the kind of emotional breakdown that happens in the life and leads to taking the risks of journey. And more importantly, I want to challenge the line between aspiration and mobility, the line that assumes that everyone who aspires to go will go one day. And this is, I think, the more important thing that I want to work with this chapter on. And then Turkey. Turkey is, as I observed, as a turning point for my informants, not just a simple point of waiting or a simple transit country that have to pass. But actually, when my informants came to this country, and for the first time they experienced a journey from Iran to Turkey, and that was for the first time that the imagination of journey turned to a lived experience of journey. So in this country, they paused and they all rethink about their decision. They reevaluated if they want to take this further journey, take another journey to Europe or not. Although if they came to this country with the clear mind to leave to Europe. So based on the patterns of interview, I identified three groups of people who came to Turkey and who evaluate their future plans. The first group, I named them reluctant stayers. They are the ones who had a very bad experience of journey. They saw the dangers of journey and they came to Turkey and they decide to leave and stay here, no matter what they think of it, how dissatisfied they are about the situation. And second group, I named them oscillating aspirations. These are groups that, as in their own narratives, they say that one morning they wake up and they think that I'm going to stay in this country, I'm finding the job, but exactly the night of that day, they still think that I should leave, I should go to Europe. And every content that they see, every success story that they hear, change their mind over and over again. And the third groups are the gamers, the one who came to Turkey, who are very clear about their future plans, who actually bring the idea of danger to their worldview. For example, one of my informants said that there is no color darker than black. Either I will die or I will reach Europe. There is no second option. These groups are living, for example, in very temporary housings, or safe houses provided by smugglers, and they try over and over again. So again, with this chapter, I would like to reflect kind of the transformative aspect of journey. It is something that mentioned in the literature, but not really opened up, that how journey is transforming its people and how it's affect them. So within this location and interviews in Turkey, I can see that taking one journey, really how it's affected their worldview and their future plans. And again, I wanna reflect on decision making as an ongoing process. The decisions toward every step of journey and the mindset toward every step is updating over and over again during the different stages of journey. It's not a one-time made decision. And as a conclusion, I think I'm running out of time. When I first started this fieldwork, I heard this from more than one person, that I will never be able to fully understand this journey. First, because I'm a woman. Second, because I never experienced an irregular journey. And third, because I'm not Afghan. And more importantly, I'm Iranian. I don't know really to what extent I really understood the depth of this migration journey, but based on what I have, my hope is to bring in the account of migration journey that is on the subjective side of migration, that is on what we call the soft side of migration, and really value the experience of migrants rather than relying on secondary sources. This is my first overall hope for contributing to literature on migration studies. Secondly, I'm hoping this word to, I repeated it over and over, but I'm really hoping to challenge any kind of linearity in journey, in migration journey, that assumes a direct link between between aspiring, between a mindset, between a decision and mobility, or assumes any kind of direct passage these days. I try to reflect that these journeys these days are very segmented and they're over and over taught by migrants. I try to also reflect on the agency of migrants in this relation, to put an emphasis on migration being an autonomous, autonative actually account. And finally, we have read these kind of studies of emic terms in relation to African context. For example, the use of word gamble or bushfall or attack in relation to starting migration. But I think it will be hopefully the first study to capture this emic term in this specific journey, in this specific route, the study that theorizes the use of this term and what happens in relation to this. And as methodology, I hope my work contributes to the young researchers like me who are interested in these ethnographic accounts of studying journey, because the trajectories approach of this body of work builds on what famous ethnographer George Marcus says on Follow the People, about the co-presence in ethnographic story studies. But as the journeys are getting more risky, the ethical issues are rising in relation to co-presence of migrants in their journeys. I think these kinds of following them digitally, following their digital footprints, their digital material in relation to their journey could be a new way of actually co-presenting the migration journey, hopefully. And for the future research, this study, my data really had a lot of dimensions that I had to put it aside, like the side of smugglers and how they're using these social media platforms in relation to their services, how it is changing the overall ecology of this route. And I'm hoping to kind of continue working on these materials after finishing on these 3 papers. This is the pipeline of 3 analytical chapters of my dissertation, hopefully. And I am trying to finish with this post on Telegram that says, who knows, perhaps the migrants are the one who died in the desire to fly or the desire to migrate, and others are alive. And this was really touching for me, because I think everything that I learned from this journey is kind of summarized in this one post. The way that journey is considered as a way to freedom, and in order to reach this freedom, first they have to encounter with the risk of dying. So thank you very much. I'm really looking to your feedbacks, comments. They would be really valuable for me in this stage. Thank you. Thanks a lot.